U.S. signals hardline stance as it scrambles to define position. Donald Trump will take a hardline position at his planned summit with the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, the White House said on Friday, as U.S. officials scrambled to keep pace with the president after his sudden acceptance of Kim's offer to talk. In briefings after the surprise announcement, which would be the first ever meeting of leaders of the two countries, U.S. officials made no mention of possible concessions that Trump might offer, other than saying that severe sanctions would stay in place until North Korea took verifiable steps to dismantle its nuclear weapons program. At the daily White House briefing, spokeswoman Sarah Sanders even cast doubt on Trump's acceptance of the offer of a summit, suggesting it was dependent on three conditions. Let's be very clear. The United States has made zero concessions, but North Korea has made some promises. This meeting won't take place without concrete actions that match the promises that have been made by North Korea. Sanders did not specify what actions the U.S. required Pyongyang to take, and whether the demands amounted to more than the requirement of a pause in missile and nuclear testing, which Pyongyang appears to have already agreed to. The White House later appeared to minimize the impact of Sanders' remarks, with one official telling the Wall Street Journal, "The invitation has been extended and accepted, and that stands." Later, on Friday evening, Trump added to the confusion with the tweet about the meeting in which he added a qualifying phrase, "if completed." The speed of events had Trump's administration scrambling to keep up with the president. Thursday's announcement appeared to have taken some senior U.S. officials unawares. The Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, was traveling in Africa and had told reporters, while the South Korean delegation was in the White House conveying the offer, that talks with the North were a distant prospect. Tillerson said on Friday that the U.S. had been taken aback at Kim's forward-leaning approach but described the outcome as a success for the U.S. policy of severe sanctions executed by the State Department. He said Trump had made the decision himself after determining the time was right for talks but not formal negotiations. The Vice President, Mike Pence, said that Kim's invitation to suspend nuclear tests and meet the U.S. president proved that Trump's strategy was working. The North Koreans are coming to the table despite the United States making zero concessions and, in close coordination with our allies, we have consistently increased the pressure on the Kim regime, Pence said in a statement. Our resolve is undeterred and our policy remains the same. All sanctions remain in place and the maximum pressure campaign will continue until North Korea takes concrete, permanent, and verifiable steps to end their nuclear program. Reacting to the announcement of the summit, the Chinese and Japanese governments have echoed the U.S. line that there would be no let-up in the economic pressure on North Korea until Pyongyang began to dismantle its nuclear weapons and missiles programs. It remained unclear if Kim is prepared to limit his arsenal and what he might require in return for doing so. Pyongyang had not commented officially on the summit plans since they were revealed by a South Korean delegation on Thursday night. A previous deal, the 1994 agreed framework, involved deliveries of fuel oil and the promise to build civilian nuclear reactors for North Korea. But Kim has consistently demanded an end to what Pyongyang calls Washington's hostile policies, which involve its military presence on and around the Korean peninsula and joint exercises with its ally, South Korea. Tillerson said it will take some weeks to arrange the timing for their meeting. U.S. officials said that no time or place had been agreed. Bilateral talks in the past have been conducted in Geneva, New York, and Beijing, but those involved diplomats. Kim Jong-un has not ventured outside North Korea since inheriting power from his father in 2011. A strong possibility as a venue would be the demilitarized zone between the two Koreas, a backdrop that would only add to the drama of an extraordinary encounter. In the coming weeks, the Trump administration will have to develop a negotiating strategy almost from scratch. Former officials have said that while much time and effort had gone into designing and enforcing sanctions and planning military options, almost none had been devoted to putting together a plan for negotiation. The U.S. Special Envoy for North Korean Policy, Joseph Yun, left his post last week, depriving the administration of the single diplomat who had been in contact with North Korea. He had been contemplating retirement for some time, one of his colleagues said, but would have stayed on if he felt the White House had been interested in his efforts. The State Department has been cut out of the loop on several critical moments in the evolution of administration policy on North Korea. Leadership on Korean policy has shifted to the White House. A likely key figure in the weeks running up to a summit is Allison Hooker, the only official left in the administration with first-hand experience of North Korea. She traveled there in 2014 when she was Director for Korean Affairs at the National Security Council and accompanied the U.S. intelligence chief, James Clapper, to Pyongyang to negotiate the release of American detainees. The Guardian view on Trump and Kim Jong-un not war, but with care. Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un appear to be overturning one of Marx's famous dictums, this time, history is happening first as farce. The blustering, bouffant-haired leaders who attack each other as a dotard and little rocket man, and threaten mutual obliteration, now say they will sit down to talk peace. Farce is preferable to tragedy, and after the warnings of fire and fury, the chance to at least postpone a conflagration is welcome. Any further advance to a substantive peace agreement would be a true triumph. But it is hard to take such a prospect very seriously, and easy to see what could go very wrong. Assuming the summit goes ahead, it will be the first time a sitting U.S. president has met any North Korean leader. But this is Pyongyang's diplomatic coup, not Washington's. For North Korea, the talks are the prize, or a very substantial one, at least. Previous administrations did not want to hand that over for nothing. Mr. Kim will be able to show his people that he has met the world's superpower on equal terms. Few believe that the North is willing to denuclearize in the sense the U.S. means. James Clapper, then Director of National Intelligence, said publicly that this was probably a lost cause back in 2016. It is unclear whether Mr. Trump understands this. The lesson the North learned from Iraq and Libya, surely hammered home by Mr. Trump's military threats, is to get the best weapons quickly, and hang on to them. A freeze would be a good and more plausible outcome, but even wiser, more experienced and more committed heads would find it extremely challenging. Worse, both sides presumably believe bellicosity and provocation have worked, and that they each know how to handle the other. That cannot be good. Credit for the escalation should go primarily to South Korea, where President Moon Jae-in's administration has worked tirelessly and skillfully, while keeping Mr. Trump on side by pretending that the glory is his. This is not Nixon and China. That feat took years of planning, masses of expertise, and concentrated, high-level diplomacy. This appears to be a vain caprice, made with minimal or no discussion with the State Department, and, some suggest, with an eye to the storm over adult film actor Stormy Daniels' claims of an affair. Even disregarding its internal dysfunction and the many issues demanding its attention, the administration has little time to develop plans and has slashed the State Department's expertise on the region, on arms control and even on negotiating. And any blueprint may be irrelevant. Mr. Trump is impetuous, unwilling to remedy his ignorance by listening to others, and loves to grandstand. There is little to show at home or abroad for his boast that he is a deal-maker. The U.S. does not even have an ambassador to South Korea. It dropped its choice, Victor Cha, an expert widely regarded as a hawk, for not being hawkish enough and warning against a bloody-nose strategy towards the North. Today Professor Cha warned that this dramatic act of diplomacy may also take us closer to war. Failed negotiations at the summit level leave all parties with no other recourse for diplomacy. U.S. allies are nervous, the risks are real. The prestige of both sides is invested in this meeting. It isn't hard to imagine the men giving or taking offense, or Mr. Trump dropping U.S. secrets or making a concession inadvertently, or goading the North in a post-summit tweet. Yes, job is better than war. But there is every likelihood that a summit will be at best a spectacle, and at worst could bring tragedy rather than peace one step closer.